Hey, is this working right now? Let me see if we got chat going. Got the headphones here. Let me turn this down. Figured why not? Let's do a quick little chat. I knew a lot of people were here, whatchamacallit, thinking they were going to do something anyways today, like the Craig Jones-Gabby Garcia fight, which I actually woke up for, planned a little bit of my day around to see this. Apparently is not happening. I think a dingo ate the baby. You get some Australian jokes in there. Maybe you're watching this right now. I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, got this going right here on both sides. I need to publicize this. So let's see what the link is. And maybe I lock myself off real quick. A lot of chats on here. Live direction, rotation, work. Right. People are coming on. How do I share a link with this? If you're on and you're on the live chat, go ahead and say something. What's up, Leah? So the reason why I said I was going to do something like this anyways, but like, yeah. So posted up on Reddit, made a threat to do this. I was on here all set to watch the live stream of Gabby Garcia versus Craig Jones because I'm some kind of masochist, and I honestly believed it would happen. But clearly it didn't. Ah! The funny thing is, like, I've only been to Rio once in my life. I mean, or Brazil once in my life. I was down there for 2 months. Went down with Half, had some crazy stories. But, oh man, I'm hearing myself right now. Yeah, Pete's nuts. I actually saw him 2 weeks ago at Jeff Glover's Money on the Mat event. I was actually working on a video that I was talking about that. I got to do the commentary on that. Bottom line is, Jeff Glover managed to come up with the best rule set ever for grappling. Better than anything that I've seen so far. I wouldn't go as far as to call Jeff a genius, but it's a genius rule set. The Tapper 10 rules. And I definitely want to put a video highlighting that. You know, the great thing was his tournament, he had a rematch against Sergio Farnsworth, and it was all like white, blue, and purple belt matches. Every match was exciting that he put on. It was great. Yeah, going out to Brazil, I mean, like, I've only been to Brazil in 2 months, but for 2 months, like 20 years ago, I wouldn't mind going again. No, I think the reunion place, given that we're all old, is someplace in Tijuana, checking out Scotty's stem cell clinic. I know a lot of guys have been going over to that. Judging from his thing, he's been talking about that for a while. Been rehabbing my shoulder, feeling a lot better, but yeah, maybe at some point. Craig versus Gabby might happen in Ryzen. That would be the place for it. That would absolutely be the place for it. Oops. Let's go ahead and fix this link. Now it's just me on here right now. Isn't this going? This is my dog Goku. He loves me. But boy, he can be annoying at times. Okay, let me do this right now. Yeah, but I was actually intrigued by that matchup. I was ready to watch it. it was interesting enough for sure to like, and obviously I have a lot of respect for both. I actually put out a video recently that I thought Gabby and Gordon Ryan should have a match. After all, Gabby's been called out Gordon Ryan, or she said she was willing to fight him. And quite frankly, the last 2 matches that Gordon Ryan had, I didn't see the point. It wouldn't have been any more or less competitive than the last 2 matches that he had. No disrespect to Jimenez or Wagner Hosha. So, if you're putting it in this sense, who's actually a competitive match against Gordon Ryan, why not have him fight Gabby Garcia? She's more credentialed in a way from terms of championships than any female in history, honestly, and quite frankly, more than Gordon Ryan's recent opponents. So yeah, I had 0 issue with making that a match, or I thought that should have been a match. But Craig Jones is probably the next best thing. Getting that, if you want a real male versus female match, or kind of see what's going on with that. If you want that whole hey, it's just technique type thing, that's the match to make right there. Especially since Craig is game. Just kind of cut and paste in here. You've been to Brazil a few times. I think it's just the 2 of us right now on here. I mean, you've definitely been to Brazil more often than I have. But yeah, I had an unusual experience. And when I say I went down to Brazil, I was there half the time in Sao Paulo with Hal's family, which I was really beholden to doing whatever Half was doing. And I was there half the time in Rio, Gracie Baja. I got to do what I wanted to do. Not that I was forced to do anything by Half. It was just that I didn't speak any Portuguese. Sao Paulo's a big country, or a big city. Felt like a country, 20 million people in there. What else was I going to do? There. But, man, I didn't catch Fight to Win last night. I watched the Who's Number 1. I watched the UFC instead of Fight to Win, as much as I love Fight to Win, because I really liked, I'd love to chat about that. I was totally ready. I was even thinking of doing a live stream anyways, just sitting there talking and doing commentary for Gabby versus Craig. I don't know why that match intrigues me so much, just because, I don't know, it's something interesting. The live's taking off. And I don't want a pizza today. Thanks for asking. Yeah, Scotty, for the record, Scotty was probably the first gringo to go down to Brazil. Or among the first ones, before it was was still a dangerous thing to do. Yeah, God bless Scotty. I love the fact that, not a lot of people realize he grew up in Iran for a period of time. His parents, were working there in the time of the Shah, and were there around the time of the revolution. So that was hairy. And then he went down to Brazil when it was, I'm not going to say scary, but it was scary at that point. And then he went to Pakistan to make gis, and he said that was the scariest place he's ever been. We should get him on for a chat. He's always interesting to listen to. Yeah, I don't know about Gabby's sense of humor. Again, this is nothing. Craig has an off sense of humor. Gabby, I can see her not or taking that seriously, putting that out there that way. Speaking of Scotty, speaking of Gabby, I'll throw out this confession here. I've said this a few times. The worst thing I've ever done to anybody in my entire life. I always point out that Gabby used to train in Las Vegas. She actually used to be bigger than she was right now. She was like a blue or purple belt. She trained at Mika's gym. And at one point I had posted up a video of Mika losing in a tournament match. And not because I had anything against Mika, which he seemed to think, or that team seemed to think. It was just it was one of these tournaments I just posted up every black belt match. I thought that would be interesting. And the team might have taken an offense to it. Gabby was ready to do action. They showed up to the first OTM fight shop. Not they were invading or doing anything like that, or they were going to do anything bad, but Gabby starts yelling at Scotty, who's the obviously more of the face of OTM in the sense that he's the more visible one, he's the more personal one when he goes out there. And then she's like, "Oh, you're trying to make us look bad. I'm going to go kill you." and starts chasing Scotty around the parking lot. If you can picture that, like the larger version of Gabby Garcia, wearing tight pink everything and a fanny pack. I'll never forget this. Yelling at Scotty that she's going to eat her or something like that because, or kill him. Because he posted up that video. And the truth was, I posted up the video, and I didn't say anything. Like, I was just like, all right, I'm going to let Scotty take this one here. If nothing else, Scotty's fast enough that it wasn't going to be anything bad. So he got away from her. But yeah, like, I always felt bad about that. Like, I should have, like, taken my beating like a man, so to speak, or whatever it would have been at that point. Death by snoo or whatever. Like, I've never told Gabby that, by the way, and I have seen her a few times since then. Always been very nice, very respectful to me. And like, I'm disappointed the match didn't go through. I kind of compare it to, there's a couple of other, maybe I'll do like a history of male versus female matches. Who do we have? In ADCC, there was, a friend of mine that competed in ADCC in the female division, used to fight men as a female, and actually won all the way up to brown belt divisions. Is transgender now, hasn't competed since he made the transition. So that's one, and I know I have some of those videos. There was the Terra La Rosa with that MMA kind of match that happened a little while ago. Trying to think of like real serious grappling matches that happen between males and females. That'd be good. Oh, that's a good topic of discussion. I've been so busy, like, trying to get the school running again and dealing with like Santa Clara and having 2 schools in this area that I haven't had much energy to do the videos and stuff like that. But I got some good ones here. I got some good ones ready to go. Some of the, you can see right there, Gumby in Brazil. I've been, actually my latest project, I'm doing a bunch of the old IGJJF tapes. So I have like Salo versus Peta Pano. I have Huron Gracie versus Kurt Osiander, Huron's last brown belt match. I have the whole tournament from there. Hender's last brown belt match, which I posted up recently. One of the things about like when I have to do these videos, like I have the whole OTM collection. I'm not going to pan the camera around because it's on a stand. I have about 1,000 of these tapes right now, mini DVDs, and my player barely works right now. And the issue with recording on tape is you have to. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. It takes me an hour at a minimum to record an hour of footage, and it's not like I can pick and choose. It's like, if anybody's old enough to remember VHS, that's where we go. I have some BJ Penn footage that, I actually have a ton of BJ Penn footage that's coming out pretty soon. Some of it was shot and edited already. Some of it I don't even know how it wound up on my system. A lot of the stuff that was shot by, not BJ, but JD himself, BJ's brother. I might have the Teddy Day versus BJ Penn fight somewhere in my collection. Like I somehow wound up with all the masters, or a lot of masters of the BJ Penn stuff. So eventually that's going to definitely go up. The big debate I had right now is when J.E. Penn shot it. Like J.E., God bless him, is like one of the funniest shit talkers ever. So like he's talking through every single match, and like Matt Wynex, and I'm like, oh, look at this guy, he's tough. And before I felt like, way back in the days when we posted out on OTM, like I thought like, ooh, I can't offend anybody. So like I edited a lot of that commentary out, but it still makes me laugh. And now I'm just like I don't care anymore like about offending anybody at this point. I'll go ahead and post up whatever. The commentary is pretty hilarious. You hear a lot of that too, like especially now that I can't put like the music over everything like we used to. Like for some reason we thought that it was interesting to put music, and it'd be, I don't even think we had the means to do commentary back at that point. But at some point, I'm gonna have to release that follow-up commentary. What was I gonna do? Oh yeah, I still gotta post to Reddit and say like, hey, I'm doing something right now. Or how many other people come on? I'm echoing. Donnie. Got the microphone hooked up here to here. I'm actually running on 2 computers right now. I don't know what I can do about that. Give me a second. Stop it! My dog is humping my leg right now too as I'm trying to... Stop it. I bet you... I'm using OBS right now. See if I did that. Is that better? Is it still echoing? I've used OBS before. If anybody knows anything about that. And then like the system that I was mainly using it on crashed badly, and I just did a quick reinstall of it right now. So I probably had some settings different. I do have your tapes. I have One World. That's Mike Prudencia. That's best. One of the best kept secrets in jiu-jitsu in terms of the Bay Area. One of the best kept secrets in the Bay Area. Like One World's an awesome one. Mike Prudencia, a long-term friend of mine. Yeah. The tape I have of you is like high 8. Like I have no idea how to record that. Still haven't even gotten around. Like I thought I'd just be sitting here talking to myself. Let's see. But a couple of people are on right now. Oops. Gumby's old school stories. The problem with me, like everybody knows, like when I post on Reddit, which is where I'm posting this on right now, that I have like old school stories and like I made a history of that. And I guess it's kind of a brand name that I should embrace. The only thing is it's like every time or a lot of the videos I post up or a lot of commentary I make goes to BJJ Eastern Europe, and they all say like old school black belt Gumby, old school black belt Gumby, and I always kind of read like old black belt Gumby. This gets to me a little bit, just a little bit. And the funny thing is I'm talking to guys that are actually, or coming in, I have students, plenty of students that are, well, I have some students that are older than myself. The vast majority are definitely younger. I'm hitting that point. I'm hitting that point where it's like, I'll pull off the old act or like sometimes when it's to my benefit, like, but I'm not quite ready for the AARP yet. I forgot to hit send on this one right now. Actually, 1999. What happened in 1999? I went to, it's actually pretty easy for me to date when I went down to Brazil, if that was the question of when I went down, which would make more than 20 years ago, because Renzo Gracie actually took his first loss in MMA when I was down there, and I was with Half, of course. So Renzo was undefeated at that point, and I don't remember how I had internet access. Like it was just kind of assumed there would be another victory for Renzo, and I actually got to break the news to Half that Renzo had lost that match. I'm not going to say he was like heartbroken about it. He was definitely upset when I told him that. Like, he was kind of in disbelief. He's like, can you check again? Like, are you sure? Are you sure? I'm like, I don't think they would lie about this. And again, it was like one of the forums or something like that put on. So I can look it up. Interesting thing is like when I was down there and I was training at Gracie Baja, like a lot of people don't know this, is that Carlinos actually asked me to be part of the Baja team or take part on that team's competition or represent Gracie Baja when I went down there. Scotty wound up doing that one year. He was on the same team with Andre Galvan, believe it or not. But at the time, there was a couple of reasons why I didn't do that. Like the time that I had to do in Brazil was coming to an end at that point. I was still working a job at that point, and the job was cool enough that they were actually, I didn't even take vacation when I went down to Brazil for 2 months. I was literally getting paid the entire time I was there. The caveat was like I had to come back when there was actually work to do. This is the Silicon Valley .com days. So I actually had work to come back and do. And I would have felt like a super jerk if I went back, or if I quit and kind of went back on my word, saying to like, oh, like you guys let me out here, and now I'm gonna quit. Like when there's actually work to do, like I would have put them in a lurch. And then I went back home. I worked there for 2 weeks. Then I wound up quitting anyways. Not because I was going to go back down to Brazil. It's because the office changed a bit. And my direct supervisor was not a very nice person. Like, she was such a not nice person, actually, that that like when I put in my notice, like the HR person, like who apparently she made a bunch of other people quit. The HR person. Like I put in 2 weeks notice so I can finish off the project that I said would do. Her supervisor, my HR person, actually came over, handed me my check early and said like, hey, like we totally understand what you're going through. If you just wanted to walk out the door right now, we wouldn't have an issue with that. I'm like, nah, like I gave my word. I'm not going to do that. And what the hell is she going to do to me anyways? It's like I already quit the job. Like I'm on my 2 weeks notice at that point, or my whatever week notice. It's like I can stick it out at this point. If you've never quit a job and then gone back with a different attitude, I highly recommend it. Like, it was like, that fantasy if you ever won the lottery, and it's like, how would I act if I come back to the job if I won the lottery? And it's like, I would definitely have a different attitude. Except now I work for myself. And if I won the lottery, nothing would really change. Sure, I might wear a solid gold gi. Maybe I would come in with a nicer car, but like, really, nothing would change. So, anyway, 2 people on here. Chat at me. There's a chat box right over here. We can talk about the weather. We can talk about jiu-jitsu. We can talk about some old school stories, whether who would win between Craig Jones and Gabby Garcia. We can talk about the UFC. I got to go back and look at the replay of the fight to win yesterday because it was at the same time as the UFC. And I love that crew. I love Seth and Missy and everything they do. Watched the UFC yesterday. I did watch the Who's Number One. We could talk about that match right there. I've watched some of the Who's Number One. Like I was actually teaching when it was going on. One of my students actually is like, "Oh, it's Gordon Ryan versus Wagner Hosha is on right there," and he was doing that as I was leaving because we have this pod system and we were shifting over. And it's like, part of me wanted to sit there and watch it at that point, but it was just like I pretty much knew it was going to happen. And not that I live far away, like, a couple of minutes to get over there. But when I got home, I was like actually surprised, hey, this match is still going on. And Wagner's game, which I should have known. Like, his gameness, his willingness to fight, his heart, even his skill was never in question. It was just like, okay, but that's not a good matchup for Gordon. Like, who would be a good matchup for Gordon? Andre Galvan, will that match happen? Penn? I saw an interesting call out actually is 2019 World's Strongest Man Martins Licis actually called out Gordon Ryan. I don't know if they're planning on doing a collab or something like that. I'd be really interested in that. Like I've often said, like I actually these days, to be honest, for fun, watch more strongman competitions than I watch jiu-jitsu competitions. And there's at one point that I kind of called out jiu-jitsu competitors for saying like, they need to learn how to develop a good social media following, market their personalities. I think Flo has this Daisy Fresh thing that's trying to do something like that, but I think you should do stuff like on Control Yourself and do this on YouTube and social media channels. I think there's a good thing like that. And I'd say like the strongman is a really good way to go after it. Like a guy like Martins Licis. So I'm excited in a number of different ways if Martins Licis and Gordon Ryan are actually going to be collaborating on something. Okay, wasn't meaning to ignore you. How's Vincent doing? Vincent I haven't seen a little bit since COVID started up. He was training with us. He has been training. He was, I wouldn't call him consistent, like, or whatever, but like, he was in the academy. He was present. Let's just put it that way. He's not going to see this, so I always tell this joke. It's like, that person that like had that handicap and overcame a bunch of obstacles and worked super hard and came up to the best of his abilities, and like, there's that inspirational story. Vince isn't that story. But I love him all the same anyways, and like, I'll always kind of look after him and take care of him to what I can do. But I haven't seen, I've talked to him, but I haven't seen him since the whole COVID thing started. So I would say I haven't actually seen him in a year. But he's been about the same, which is, I don't know, it's Vince. What do you want? Like they did a podcast with him one time. Not me. There was a comedian named Butch locally. Butch, I can't remember. Butch looks like he looks like a maniac. That's his words. He was a local comedian around here. He had this podcast. And everybody in San Jose knows Vince is the lurker. Like, it's funny. Like, everybody knows in San Jose, in the nightlife scene, knows both of the Earl brothers for different reasons. Cameron, because he legitimately probably beat up 1,000 people, like, between, like, his life and working as a security guard. And Vince would be the opposite. He was the lurker. So, there you go. Will BJ Penn ever fight again? I hope not at this point. And I'm saying that as a friend. Beyond you get to a certain age, he's approaching 40 now if he isn't already. Even under the best circumstances, not for every Yoel Romero that's like an amazing shape, there's a certain level of genetics and motivation that it takes to get there. And if you're not going to have that motivation right now to stay in shape, much less fighting shape, then you shouldn't fight. I mean, what is he, he's lost his last 7 in a row right now? I mean, like, he had the longest losing streak in the UFC. Like, and it's almost kind of like these days when it's so like, what have you done for me lately in MMA? It's a testament to how great he was and how influential he was back in the day, and like how he basically changed the game that, the UFC wouldn't even allowed him to have that type of run, that one last shot, that one last shot, that one last shot. Like at this point, it doesn't seem like the mind or the whatever's going. You might see videos of him training right now, but like, there's a difference between casual training and training for fun and enjoying that, which I still believe he does, and like he should do. Like, like he is a martial artist, and I'd like to see people do that for the rest of their life. And given everything else, like I think that's really great for him. But there's a difference between that and being in fight shape. Those are two different things, especially with the way the game is, the way things are under. Look, like when BJ came into the Heroes, I don't remember if you were training there at that point. It was the surprise entrance that he came in at. Like, and obviously I knew that he was coming in, but I also knew if I made an announcement that BJ Penn's coming to train at the gym, that I'd have like 1,000 people that I had never seen before swarming there, and I didn't want to do that. As it was, he came in during the second half of class, and we wound up rolling, and it was like old times. Like, I had to focus. Like, after I got to a point, it was just the two of us rolling, and I really wasn't paying attention to anything. But when we got done rolling, I look up, and the class had literally doubled in size. And this was like after class. Like, just the word got out, and people kind of came in. But we actually had a couple of interesting conversations about that. Conversation number one was like, he was retired at that point. This is before he fought Rory McDonald. He brought Rory McDonald up, and he was like, we were talking about being like old lions at that point, and he didn't have the hunger, and like, and he even made comments like, wow, like I was like, I put on the gloves for the last time, and clearly he didn't, because he had a number of fights after that. But at that time, I think that was his mindset, and he seemed like he was at peace with it. Although we did discuss like his possibility of him doing grappling super fights, which I really would have loved him to see him do. So that was one really kind of interesting tidbit. Maybe I've talked about that, maybe I hadn't. The other really interesting tidbit about that is he told me about Keenan Cornelius, who was a purple belt under him at the time. And obviously, especially if you're coming over from different forums, you know who Keenan Cornelius is. And he's like, man, this guy's really good. I can barely do anything to him. and I thought it was just me. And then he went ahead and he won, like, he either won the Abu Dhabi trials or more likely he won his category for the Abu Dhabi Pro, and I can't remember which. I'm going to have to go back and do some math and see what Keenan Cornelius did in his career. But here's the interesting tidbit that BJ shared with me, was that he was on his way to the academy to promote Keenan Cornelius to brown belt. And Keenan Cornelius already kind of up and left the academy at that point and really didn't tell anybody. And he was like, wow, like that happened right there. And he wasn't mad about that. But if you also know the history, or maybe you know that BJ and I were teammates at Ralph Gracie's a long time, and he wasn't, and then he wasn't, he said at that point maybe he had a little bit more empathy for the other side at that point, now that he went through that same type of thing. So, interesting kind of tidbit right there. That was the first time I'd heard of Keenan Cornelius at that point. That obviously certainly wasn't the last time I'd heard of Keenan Cornelius. At that point, actually, Keenan went over to Lloyd, and you know what? Same story at Lloyd's. Well, from what I don't want to get into that, but like, you know, the actual reason of why Keenan left Lloyd's, of course, there was a lot of drama going on at that point, is unknown. The actual reason why Keenan left Atos, there's some rumors, is unknown also. But yeah, it was just like one of those kind of coincidental type things that, you know, like I had heard of him before, and like in the context I heard it was like, yeah, he bounced out without telling anybody from a gym. Which is your right to do. Let me make that clear. Like, I would never kind of put that out there. That like, oh yeah, you're there for life or anything like that. I would never tell anybody that. Like, you know, you should be the place where you want to train at. That's important. Like, you know, if somebody wanted to train with me or if they wanted to train with somebody else, like, yeah, like, by all means, go ahead and do it. I'd rather that you were training with me because you wanted to, not because you felt like a sense of obligation on that. However, having said that, I think, like, you know, when I say as human beings and whatnot, there's a certain etiquette about going through things. You know, if you have a problem with somebody, just go up and tell them that problem. Or it's like, you know, come up and say, like, hey, like, I want to do this. And it's like, okay. No need to sneak around, or there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And actually, I don't have enough information on the previous situation that I'm mentioning of Keenan to say one way or the other. I just want to make it clear, you know, as old school as I am on certain things, it's like, you know, like, I do believe there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. You know, it's like, you know, just be of your word and a handshake, but I don't believe in, like, indentured servitude or anything like that. So, man, that's what I just wanted to say right there. Yeah, BJ trained a lot of people, but, like, Keenan came from the islands. You know, like, speaking of that, you know, BJ started training at Ralph Gracie's studio on the recommendation of Tom Kalos, who's one of BJ Penn's first martial arts coaches out in the island, and Keenan Cornelius' stepdad. So you have that connection there too. And I'll be blunt. I mean, like, I've talked to Tom Kalos since then, but I don't honestly remember him when he came into the academy, and I barely remember BJ Penn's first week of training. Yeah, I started before he did. Like, he came in, he caught a bunch of guys with ankle locks, which I'm not going to say that it was taboo to us, like we didn't, but we certainly weren't as versed on some other stuff. But once we figured that out, we actually kind of, for lack of a better word, is like, okay, he got gotten at that point. Like, you know, he caught a couple of guys with ankle locks. We figured out his game, and then yeah, it was a different story. Everybody caught him after that, and then he left after a week. And at that point, it was just kind of that, oh, he's a guy that, like, yeah, it was just another guy that came in and out of the academy at that point, which, you know, there was very few academies in the country right now. There's very few academies in Northern California for sure, much less the pedigree of health teaching there. So that wasn't that uncommon of a thing for people to come in and out. And like I said, I definitely remember training with BJ that first week, although, like, I don't remember too much interaction with him. I just remember it's like, oh, the guy that likes ankle locks. And I don't remember Tom Kalos, I'm sorry to say, out of that. But the truth is, like, after he left, like, it wasn't that he was just bouncing and going away. He was going back home. It's like, oh my God, I love this so much. I'm actually moving to, well, technically not Mountain View. He moved to Sunnyvale, I think, like, or Santa Clara, one of the two, right there on the border of Lawrence Expressway. I've been to his place a bunch of times. But yeah, he was going home to pack his stuff so he can actually move to the Bay Area permanently, which he did for 3 years. So that's my it's this whole kind of really small world type thing. Like, you know, sometimes when I tell these stories, I'm really kind of the Forrest Gump of jiu-jitsu in that, like, if you remember that movie, he's like just in the background of all these important events, or he just coincidentally knows a bunch of people, or he buys Apple stock, or, like, you know, farts on Lyndon Baines Johnson. That's been me for like the last 20 years. Like, you know, the random people that I run into, like the randomness of the people that I've met and run into and what they've gone in, like, you know, the interconnections and going through right there. Every now and again I have to sit there and think about it. It's like, wow, that's crazy. Like, you know, how I met this person or knew this person or interconnected or wove through and did that. And not all, like 99% of those connections are through jiu-jitsu, but there's a couple that's like, yeah, this was random. So, yeah, there's a story for you right there. Got 6 people on here. No. What else to say right now? It's 1 o'clock my time right now. Anybody, did this actually go through? It didn't. I'm a bitch with Reddit. Sometimes I have to like go ahead and post like 4 or 5 different times to make sure it goes through. I don't know if anybody else has that issue. I recently got back onto MMATV. I don't know why I'm not posting this on MMA.tv. I was off there for 2 years for no other reason that like I couldn't log on for years. Like, I don't know if it was the random rogue moderator that kicked me off or whatever. We tried so many times, and Keurig, the actual owner of MMA TV, tried to get me on too, and we couldn't get it. And just one day it decided I really wanted to get back on there, so like I contacted him, and like, God bless Keurig, he was in Qatar, like doing commentary for Brave Fighting Championships, but he actually took time out while he was doing commentary to make sure I got back onto MMA TV. And I would say the flavor of MMA TV, since it's been around so long, it's like a lot older folks on there. Yeah, like, quite frankly, they're older folks on there, on the forums. People have been around for a long time. It's like, oh, special account if you get a black belt. Like, you know, you've been seeing these same guys on the internet forums for 20 years. Most of those guys are black belts now. It's pretty cool to kind of go ahead and talk about that. And then Reddit tends to be the newer, younger, hipper crowd, so to speak. The Reddit internet ones. So, like, half a dozen of one, 6 of the other. Like, they're definitely different. They have different flavors. But I enjoy both of them. I had a Sherdog account at one point too, and it was really on the urging of Jeff Sherwood, the original owner and founder of Sherdog. That's where the name Sherdog came from. Jeff Sherwood, Sherdog, makes sense if you think about it. He used to be an old school MMA pioneer in his own right. Sherdog was the biggest website for MMA for a very long time. But I haven't posted on there out of principle because, you know, he definitely got paid when they bought that. But then he somehow got kicked off of his own site. So, like, I still go on Sherdog, but it's begrudgingly because, you know, Sherwood doesn't have anything to do with it. And I still do talk to him, at least on Facebook, every now and again. What plans do I have for my YouTube channel? Well, I plan on doing more commentary stuff like this. I figure, like, you know, kind of it's a good way to kind of keep my name in the spotlight. I've developed a bit of a bully pulpit over the years. People, for whatever reason, like my opinion on things, and I like talking about stuff, so this is a good avenue to get out there. So I'll do at least half of that on this, or through YouTube. And I have, like I said, about 1,000 of these types of tapes of videos of all kinds to put out. Like, the editing process, just digitizing this stuff is a huge pain in the ass. And it's a lot more work, just because it's tape. Tape is a 1-to-1 ratio out there. It takes me, if you want to capture an hour's worth of footage, it takes an hour to do that at a minimum, assuming my equipment doesn't act up. But I have a lot of stuff on there. I have a lot of stuff that I forgot that I had. You know, like, the biggest video on this channel by far, like, you know, not even a second place, is Jocko Willink versus Jeff Munson. And that's actually one that we put on a DVD. It was kind of buried in there at the time. Jeff Munson was the big name there. Jocko wasn't really well known. This is even before, like, he's been a Navy SEAL obviously for 25 years, but this match is before the tour of Iraq that he's really known for right now. And there's the conflict that he was in that I can't remember the exact name of right now, so I'm not going to say it, only because I don't want to mispronounce it. And it was a pretty serious event. And of course, now Jocko is one of the biggest personalities on YouTube right now. Like, I can't tell you, well, at least to me right now, I can't tell you how many people have come in training jiu-jitsu or said, because Jocko said that jiu-jitsu was a good thing. But yeah, that was like a footage, like when I saw that when I'm reviewing, it's like, ooh, I think this will be interesting to show people right there. Because Jocko's obviously a big name, and Jeff Munson, the two of them going at it, and people, Jocko talks about jiu-jitsu, and I'm very thankful for that because it's helped out a lot of us. And like, I'm gonna go ahead and put this up. And it's generated like 1.5 million views, and actually it's not only just so much the views that video is generated, it's the commentary that still comes in. And YouTube has this algorithm that sends you every single comment. I think it's gotten like, how many comments has it gone on? It's a lot. It's put out so many different comments. Like, it's every day it generates anywhere between 5 to 10 comments of people coming in and saying good, or talking about how both guys look roided out, or like Jocko would shoot Jeff if it was like war or something like that. And it's just like every morning when I wake up and see all the comments that came in, it's just the most entertaining thing in the world to me. Like, all the people that still talk about this match at this point, which was just this quick 2-minute highlight video. And I probably have the unedited footage someplace. And I know I have more Jocko footage. It's just buried somewhere along the tapes and whatnot. But I know I've seen him compete a number of times before. But it's a process to go through all that type of stuff. But yeah, at some point, the goal is to have all this digitized, cataloged. Some of the things, like, I doubt very many things are going to get the same type of viewership that particular video did. But to me, it's important to put that history out there. Like, as most people know, there's a period of time, like, mid-90s to mid-2000s, that I was the video guy, that I have more video footage out there of literally anybody. And not even in terms of, like, oh, how can I monetize at that point, although that's been a concern at points. I don't want to lose money putting this stuff up there. But I want to make sure that a lot of legacies are preserved. Like, why is this guy important? Why do we talk about this guy? Such and such a competitor. Why were they important? What were their struggles and stuff like that? And I don't want to see that lost. Particularly because, like, again, like, fighting, jiu-jitsu, martial arts, this generation, whatever, is such a what have you done for me lately type thing. Like, people, don't remember who won, like, or why somebody was important 5 years ago in this game. There's only one champ, right? And I think putting that footage out there will help kind of contribute to the information that's out there, will contribute to the history. Quite frankly, it'll help out a lot of guys. So, like, if somebody says, like, oh, I'm a 4-time champion in this, your name, and I guess you can look up those records, and that's important right there. But it's like, there's also this kind of like, well, here's some footage that I can go ahead and show you why this guy is important and what this guy did, and like why you might want to listen to this person. This information is out there and verified. And again, it was from a period that I would come out, I had the camera and stuff like that. People didn't have cell phone cameras. Like, video cameras are expensive. Nobody really thought to record that type of stuff, believe it or not. Which is funny to say, because now, like, 20 years later, everybody records everything that happens. Like, if you go on YouTube, there's probably, like, 2 million hours of somebody sitting on the toilet, for example. Everything in society is recorded. But to think that there was a time that things weren't being recorded, and I was the guy that was recording, has this footage, and it's actually relevant, and what I would consider relevant and important footage, I think it needs to go out there. There's a great quote that applies to a lot of things. It's like, if we're here, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. That we have to kind of pay respect to what happened in the past. And we don't necessarily have to be beholden to it either. I'm not crazy about when people kind of like, well, back in my day, like, we did this, and like, it's one step off from get off my lawn, you snoopy kids. Like, I don't want to be that guy either. If the respect comes, there has to be a reason for that, but it's like, it also has to be this acknowledgement. It's like, yeah, your day is, I was whatever I was back in my day, but like, it's not my day anymore. It's a new generation's day. It's their time right now. It's just, that's important. We want to acknowledge and support that, but just don't forget what happened back in the day, because at some point, somebody else is going to come along. Like, and there's always going to be a new king on the mountain king of the mountain. Like, I don't know, it's like you might be the greatest of all time as opposed to like recent history. You might be it right now, but you know, who's to say in 10 years there's not going to be another person that surpasses what you've done. In fact, it's not really like, you know, it's very likely in 10 years that somebody's going to come by and surpass what you go ahead and do. Yeah, it's just the nature of what's going on. And, you know, quite frankly, in 10 years' time, it's like, you know, even hopefully, if all of us are doing our job together, when I say that, like kind of the media and internet personalities and whatnot, hopefully in that 10 years' time, the sport's that much bigger. So, who's the great right now? Like, you know, Gordon Ryan, like all the credit in the world to him. I really enjoy him as a grappler. And he's striving to be the greatest of all time, but I hope in 5-10 years' time there's somebody that surpasses all of his accomplishments. And not because I have anything against Gordon Ryan, it's because I just want to see the art and sport evolve that way. And I hope, like, you know, Gordon has like 300,000 followers. I hope in 10 years it's 300 million followers, because that's how big it's gone. You know, 300 million, like, that might be an unrealistic number to throw out there. But you got to shoot for some goals. Like, you know, we want things bigger and badder and all that. And we have to acknowledge and kind of work there. So, like, you know, in my days, like if you had 300,000 followers, like in my days, if we had like, you know, 30,000 people that came down and out on a monthly basis or regular basis, it was just the microcosm of what jiu-jitsu, what our art, what our sport was. Like, you know, if you love it, you want to keep it growing, you want to see it grow, you want to do what you can to make it grow. But you also have to recognize what your place is, and you have to be careful about how your ego gets in there. So yeah, like, you know, I was a big shot back in the day in a smaller pond. I still have a little bit of clout right now, but I'm okay with that. It's time for me to kind of, I got to know my role, but I won't shut my mouth, if that makes sense. Yeah. See if anybody actually clicked on from Reddit here. Or if anybody's like, oh, like I totally do that. You know, it's kind of a surprise. If I actually cared about getting a lot of viewers, which I'm not going to lie, I do care about getting more viewers, I would have done a better job of promoting this. I would have said, like, hey, coming up in 24 hours, I'm going to do a live chat. Maybe I would have done. Like, I actually did one chat that I think had like a couple hundred people in there at one time that was spontaneous. But I got to kind of figure out this whole algorithm thing, or how to attract an audience. Putting out content is important to me. The audience, building an audience is secondary, but that's probably not the way that I should go about doing that. Again, old man's get off my lawn type moment right there. Like, I don't understand social media in some ways sometimes. Or why people are stars for what they are. But that's okay. I'm not supposed to. Like, I'm old. Like, you know, this is new person stuff. Like, you know, the joke is when I was a kid, for example, it's like, you know, old people didn't know how to program with the VCR and younger people did. Like, now your generation, you're thinking, like, what the hell is a VCR? It's kind of that thing. Like, you know, it's just that kind of recognition of where I'm at, where I'm at mentally, if not physically at this point. I've had some really interesting conversations lately about, like, hey, am I too old to start this? You know, a couple of gentlemen that are either starting or going to start really soon, that are in their late 50s, or that are thinking about getting into jiu-jitsu now. It's like, can I do this? It's a young man's sport, which is true. But, you know, if you discovered jiu-jitsu back when I discovered jiu-jitsu 25 years ago, the chances are you wouldn't still be in it at this point. And I'm not saying that to make myself sound special or anything like that, that like, oh, like I made it this time. But anybody that's been training as long as over 20 years or even 10 years at this point will just tell you that how many people come out from that, or how many people have, it's a smaller percentage of people that are still in it than aren't. And it's life reasons, injuries and stuff like that. You know, the only special ability I have is I'm stubborn. The flexibility might have saved me a bit, you know, being nicknamed Gumby, but like, you know, it definitely isn't any type of intelligence or anything like that. Stubbornness and a lot of luck. What's up, Sean? Facebook is for old people now, I know. I only post jokes and memes on there. Like, I never post anything personal. I very rarely post anything, like, ever political or anything like that. Simply because I don't trust Facebook. I don't like the algorithms they have on, which, the young people figured out before the old people at. My mom joined Facebook about a year ago, so now I really have to watch what I do on that because she will call me about things. And I also said that was the death knell. When my mom joins Facebook, I'm off of Facebook. But it has its uses too. Like, as long as you don't take it that seriously. For me, especially for me, a guy that's been around the world, trained, made a bunch of friends, it's the best way I can think of keeping track of all those friends. Is it the most ideal way? No. Like, the ideal way is visiting or like a good old-fashioned letter and email. But Facebook just makes it so much more convenient. Like, and quite frankly, I know myself, if I didn't have Facebook, I would definitely lose track of a lot of folks. So that's important to me. If anything, with the Instagrams and the TikToks and your Twitters and all that, you don't get that type of, everybody wants to be seen and heard, but nobody wants to listen. I think that's one of the big issues. Even with Facebook, where it could have that wonderful opportunity to have those interactions and like see what people are doing. Like, that's what I'm more interested in, seeing how people are doing to a certain extent. I've never had this need to be seen myself. Samson, what's up? Miss you too. Hopefully you're back in soon. Hopefully everything's going well for you. BJJ is never going to be an Olympic sport, Don. And I can go on to this rant for it. But the big reason is, there's a number of big reasons. Like, I guess it's big enough now, worldwide, that it could be. But there's a level of organization you have to go through. There's a level of politics you have to pay through. Hell, it has to be sponsored by a nonprofit, which would kill it right there. The IBJJF is certainly not a nonprofit. And the idea that, like, the Olympics will make things better could make things worse. Olympics don't always make things better. It's certainly a level of prestige. I would like to see it on certain levels, but it's not a magical cure-all. Like, hey, let's put jiu-jitsu on the Olympics and it'll make things better. Like, the Olympics have been known to destroy things. And here's the likelihood of it. Like, judo and wrestling are barely hanging on the Olympics. They're like, taekwondo went out. Like, I think karate's in. They're not going to put another martial art or grappling art in there. Not without a lot of lobbying and work and stuff like that. It's just not going to happen. I think there's other avenues to grow the sports, but I've kind of given up on that Olympic dream. What's a positive that comes out of this last year in jiu-jitsu? Like, in times of crisis, you find out where people are, where they stand, who your friends are. You see who you can count on, and et cetera, et cetera. So, like, the fact that I still have a school at this point is a real positive for me. And the only way I would have that is because of my students, the community that we built up at Heroes, the way that we, like, people's like, no, we're not going to let it go. Like, we'll do what we can. And, like, I've done everything I could on my side on that, but there's an acknowledgement, and this is hard for me to say, just in general, it's like, there's an acknowledgement, like, yeah, you can't do everything on your own. Like, as much as I'd like to be that self-reliant, I'm an island to myself, and I can handle anything, like, in a lot of ways you can't. Like, you need a community around you. We live in a society. Like, there's a whole bunch of other factors on there. That, like, okay, I'm going to be strong in the face of everything. Which in some ways martial arts preaches, strength in adversity, and it's important, but it can be twisted in some ways. We're stronger together, and so, like, if anything, like, the fact that we got to survive that, and, like, and see the strength of our community, and, like, there's certain things that like, really showed people's resiliency and their empathy and compassion and their willingness to work and move forward. And even the negative things that happened. I just reposted an article about how Santa Clara was the most heavy-handed county in the, if not the Bay, since it's the Bay Area, I'm gonna go ahead and say in the country, and how they dealt with things, for better or for worse. And honestly, like, you're 14 times more likely to get a fine as a small business in Santa Clara County, and yet we still have the highest percentage of numbers. I can go on to a long rant about that. But rather than ranting about that, there's a chance for anything that negative happens. It's like, okay, we know what happened right here. I wouldn't have been necessarily aware of certain issues, but now here's a chance and a really rallying call to go ahead and fix those issues, to go ahead and correct those issues, to see what can be done, to roll up our sleeves and go about doing things. I'm certainly not going to say like anything that doesn't kill you will make you stronger, because like, what if it cripples you, which it certainly last year has done to people in a lot of ways. But you do your best to like, really accentuate the positive things that came out and learn something from the negative. And there's lessons that have happened through this last year that we will be carrying the rest of our lives. I'll take that. I'll take that. That's my line. That's what positive. That's what I'm gonna go ahead and say about that. I've been on this for an hour right now. It's actually kind of flown by, with the one exception is it's cheat day today. I got myself a nice big cheat meal there. Went to 99 chicken, Korean fried chicken, which I haven't had for a while. So I'll go ahead and say one of the negatives that happened out of this is I found without being able to get on the mat and train jiu-jitsu with any kind of regularity, and I really did take the time off, which healed me up, but I also didn't want to come in and do the secret training when I knew a lot of people couldn't. It wouldn't have felt right to me, but it also made me lose, if not my gains that I made in terms of strength. Like I was really adamant, like I've been really working out hard, not just in jiu-jitsu, but I've been hitting the gym a lot pre-COVID, and I definitely lost a number of those gains. And I got to my heaviest point, which isn't super heavy for like guy my height and all that, but I definitely felt like I could be in better shape. But I know I could have been in better shape, but I lost a lot of my motivation without jiu-jitsu. Now that jiu-jitsu's back, my motivation's coming back. Quite frankly, like, and just not only like physically and taking care of yourself, but like, even the ability to go ahead and do like, other work or videos and stuff like that. Like it was a mental beatdown, not the least of which was caused by saying, I'm not gonna rant. But any rate, the whole clean eating ethic that I had was a big one right there. But I'm allowing myself, so I'm eating a lot better right now, but I'm allowing myself a cheat day, and that's my cheat day meal right there. Can I imagine Francis with jiu-jitsu skills? Woodley lost, as he probably done. So there's two things. First of all, Woodley, here's the thing about fighting, combat, jiu-jitsu, whatever in general. It's a very, in a lot of times, definitive way of going out and doing that. Like, you could do everything correctly. You can be on your best day. You can have everything going right for you, and prepared in exactly the right way. Like, you had everything going, like as Tyron Woodley, I believe, did. And still have a bad night, still have an off night. Your opponent could still do a little bit better than yourself. I watched that match, and I've been a fan of Tyron Woodley for a long time. Like, I was actually pretty much cage side. The first time I saw him really up close is when he fought Andre Galvan, and I swear, like, I saw Andre Galvan's soul leave his body that night. Like, I was like, holy crap, who is this guy? And I've literally been a fan of that guy since. Not that I have anything against Galvan. It was just like the performance that Tyron Woodley put on. He set the bar so high. Like, here's a guy that came with such physical gifts in the skill set and whatnot. But right now, this is a 4-fight losing skid, which is tough for anybody to take, much less somebody that's as talented as Tyron Woodley is. And you'll slow down a bit over time. And he's going to be 39 this year. So, like, I guarantee you certain things have diminished. And I think he did everything right. But the question is his best going to be good enough for this right now? I think it's good enough to a certain level. I mean, he was ranked number 7 in the UFC still to this point, although this one might drop him out of the top 10 for whatever this means. But is he going to be able to go back to... is he going to be able to actually... Because him going back to his championship level at this age is probably not going to be possible. Okay, like, you know, this is a younger man's sport right there. He's going to be on the tail end of that. Is he willing to put in the amount of work it takes to get to a level that he can live with, would be the question. And the only person that can answer that is Tyron Woodley. So that's the question to ask. But from an analysis of his skills and his physical abilities, yeah, he's diminished, but he still can be a top 10 fighter in the UFC if he wants to be. And that's the big question. That's the big question. And like, I think he showed the desire on that too, from his prep and from what I've heard about that and through the grapevine or what they say. Like, I don't really have a grapevine to Tyron Woodley. So it's the question is like, you know, is the juice worth the squeeze at this point right now is the question. If the answer is yes, then continue fighting. The answer is no, then he should call it a day at that point. But only he can make that decision. As far as Francis Ngannou's jiu-jitsu skills, he's developing. They said he was developing all of that, but, you know, it's even if, like, you know, Francis Ngannou pulled off a triangle choke or started pulling off that, it's still not going to be the thing that either makes him the most feared man on the planet right now, and it's not going to be the thing that, like, you know, even Cormier was saying after the fight, like, he's on the verge of being a mega superstar. And that type of knockout power will make him a mega superstar right now. His ability to kind of like, God, I love Stipe too. Like, you know, like I think like it's an example. There's plenty of examples like this, but like if you want two of the nicest guys in martial arts or mixed martial arts, two guys that you can't help but root for when you know their stories, like it'd be Stipe versus Francis Ngannou. No offense to anybody else on that. You know, it's a fallacy, I think, like especially in MMA, there's so much that you have to know. That you have to know everything. I think you just have to know enough so you can go ahead and stay with your strength. And clearly, Francis's power is his strength. His knockout ability is his strength. So I wouldn't really want to see him going out there and using jiu-jitsu in an MMA fight as much as I want to see like a lot of these jiu-jitsu fighters use their striking in an MMA fight. Like, yeah, I know it's a mixed type thing, but like, can you imagine if Buchecha goes in? It's like, or like, you know, enters in. It's like, well, if he knocked everybody out, he'd be the best fighter in the world. Buchecha has yet to make his debut at this point, but it's like, it's not necessarily what we need to see at this point, or like that's not his strength. Like, you know, like play with what got you to the dance right there. Like continue to improve, but know what got you to the dance. Know what got you over there. So that's my answer on that one right there. Man, I've been yapping for an hour now. Thanks for hanging out, Samson. Hope to see you soon. Yeah, I'll plot these. If you're just tuning in right now, I'll plot this out a little bit better. This was just kind of a spontaneous thing. When I saw the Craig Jones versus Gabby Garcia match was not going on here. If you look up above, there's word that it might happen in Ryzen. Which is actually really interesting now to think about it. Verizon's going to put that on, especially now that you have like one apparently doing grappling matches. So why wouldn't one sign that? And for the record, there's another major MMA promotion here in the United States that may or may not be local to me, but I've been pushing for years. Like, you got to do grappling matches. You got to do grappling matches. You combined like done kickboxing matches at the same time as MMA matches. Why not throw some grappling matches on the card? Why couldn't they been the guys that hired Gordon Ryan and given them a platform to compete in the U.S. and kind of spread things a little bit more? I would have thought that I think there's a potential more in that if done properly to grow than putting jiu-jitsu into the Olympics. That might be a topic for a different chat. I'm going to eat now. I'm hungry. This chicken smells good. And this is fun. This is fun. I'll do this again. I don't know what day I'll do this. I'll advertise this a little bit better. Maybe I'll put on something that, like, you know, come in with more questions. Like, that might be the thing. But if you tuned in, if you're just tuning in, you're kind of floating around, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll do this again. Feel free to, like, subscribe to this channel. Feel free to kind of go ahead and look around. There'll be more fun stuff coming in the... yeah, I don't have any idea how to end this, so I'm just going to end it. Bye.